Hey guys, I am John Carrick and this is 100 Bullets 33. So, what is interesting about this episode, this issue, Counterfeit Detective Part 3, this is not the end, this is not the third and final act. But what's interesting about this is how many private detective tropes Brian Azzarello was able to pack into this one relatively short story. Novella, 3 to 5 issues of comics is a short story in a magazine sort of thing. And again, this is Dave Johnson's cover. I really like this cover a lot. I love the foreshortening. I love the girl. That's enough for me. There's also some stuff going on here where Milo's finally getting punched. I don't remember that in this issue, but probably happens. This is a flashback. I wondered about this as soon as I saw it, when I saw that his face was not in bandages. And he is getting the job. This is a Milo, and it says Milo Garrett. You can read that in reverse. His last name is Garrett, which is a cool name for a private detective. And he is getting the job that he's getting sent out on. Now, I don't get how his face getting trashed is Carl Reynolds' fault, and this is Carl with a K, because Milo was out driving. He hit a pothole. There are a lot of these out here in LA. They never seem to get fixed, and they will mess your car up. He hits a tree or a telephone pole that puts him through the windshield and gives him a face like Jigsaw from Punisher. But how is this the other guy's fault? I do not get that. I do not get that at all. So this is Milo. Milo's talking about someone waking him up at the accident, but after he goes through the windshield, this is not where he wakes up. He wakes up with his girlfriend, Nadine. This is the one from the bar the night before, I believe. He's always wearing the same cream-colored suit, which actually goes... I've noticed that too. That color of suit for this story, set in Southern California or Florida, Miami, works really, really well. Against the backdrop, against all the pastel colors, the sunsets. This is a detective who's coming in here. He wants to know... where that dead guy is, or he wants to know if Milo knows anything about him. And he asks Milo about him, and Milo says, yeah, he's dead. He's probably on his way to the morgue. And he's like, how do you know that? Well, because I went over there to see him yesterday. I had a job for him. He was supposed to hook me up with with an advance. Now, here's a weird bit, and this is a plot hole that I didn't realize I was going to address, but I am. He went over there to pick up an advance. He admits that he picked up the check. He ran a trace. He was going to run a trace on someone, but he didn't get the name. So if you don't get the name, how do you take an advance on a trace you're never going to run? Now, obviously, that's not the story. We know the real story was about this painting and some other guy named Tannenbaum, who's mentioned in this. I'm trying to remember his first name, and I'm spacing on it now. But it's funny, this detective is named Chet, and for some reason I'm thinking of Chet Atkins, but that's not his name. I'm terrible with names on a first exposure. I gotta see him twice. I need to put a little space between. Maybe I need to read all these comics twice before I come out here and talk to you guys about them. That probably wouldn't hurt. I've had to do that a couple times for a few of these. So here they get into it. He's telling him to don't leave town. He's like, he says I'm not going anywhere. And he says, don't I know it? It's, this is very on point, but cliche cop jargon. Yes, Brian Azzarello, you're a master writer. It's very, this is again, I mentioned the Peter Chung quote a while ago that a great artist doesn't really have anything to say until they've mastered their craft. And that's because a lot of the times when an artist is coming up, you're just getting them doing all this show off that show that what they can do as opposed to what's actually happening. Notice we're getting a lot less. This would have been a great place for a braided storyline like we got in the first few issues where the people in the cafe have something going on. But these guys are probably exhausted, and you can get burnt out quick trying to think up clever scenarios to put your characters in and then get them out of it. This is so much the typical Chinatown, noir, California noir detective movie. No, like, this is it. Look at the house. Look at the layout. Look at the girls running. 60s lawn, no grass, just green. The way everything is spaced out. He's in Bel Air. He's visiting someone in Bel Air about a missing painting. And Carl Reynolds and this other guy who gave him the job in the first place. So that's what happened there. Where did that page go? This is him. He goes by Carl Reynolds' house to see if he can break in, but he realizes that with this level of security, he could get arrested for just being on the curb. So here we get 2 pages of Sam Spade, gritty detective narration, and nothing happens. Like, that's a cardinal sin, and I didn't even notice the first time because of how well it's done. This would be a scene in a movie where he's driving through, stops in front of a house, but doesn't actually go in until later. So maybe in the next issue he's going to come back at night. Maybe. Instead, he goes to this investment group downtown. Tells them he has $30.5 million and that he inherited it and he wants to invest it. And they say, well, how much are you looking to invest? He says, I think I can live off the 0.5. So he wants to invest $30 million. They send this girl in. She says, would you like to go to lunch? So she's not even going to talk to him there in the bank, right? She's going to take him out to lunch at one of the nearby really nice places that most people don't get to go to, except the bankers who work right there in Century City, or the agents or whoever, essentially, that's, downtown doesn't have these nice places. This is Century City or the Sunset Strip, West Hollywood somewhere. Not West Hollywood, more like Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills has big buildings like this off Wilshire, but probably Century City. Anyhow, he tells her he says he wants to invest in art. She tries to talk him out of it. He says he knows a guy, Carl Reynolds. She fucking calls the meeting to a close and says, when you get the inheritance, let us know. We'll talk again then. So he knows that she knows, and she knows that he knows, and that it was all a setup just to gauge her reaction, and it worked. And here he is with bandages on, so you can't see anything he's saying. And that comes up here too. Here he is back at his apartment, his office, his private detective office, which is right out of this is every, private detective movie. Humphrey Bogart. Like, this is great because you could just go back and watch those movies for reference for the art, which is a great idea. And here comes the dame. She looks like Dizzy Cordova a little bit. She looks like Dizzy Cordova a little bit, but I don't think that's her. She says her name is Echo Memoria, and then he calls her Mrs. Van Rockefeller or something like that. I think she plays a bigger part in the story later on, so maybe she just looks like Dizzy because it's the artist who draws Dizzy. And this girl says she wants to hire him to find her lover, and he asks if it's a guy or a girl. There's some other dialogue that happens, and she's like, why would you presume it's a woman? No, it's a man. And she tells him it's the Tannenbaum guy and shows him a picture. This is the guy who says Carl Reynolds hired him to steal the painting. He's a thief. Obviously, that's not his girlfriend, right? So here he is at his place, trying to figure out what's going on, when the bank girl shows up. What are you doing here? Oh, what are you doing here? Imagine that. I thought you didn't know this guy. And then, she goes into the bathroom and screams. So apparently he had not cleared the apartment because it sounds like Monroe is probably in the bathroom and he hadn't found him yet. And yeah, that is 100 Bullets 33. Right, so 100 Bullets 33. Now, I was listening to a guy on YouTube, Right Conscious. He's a bit younger than me. He is an English teacher in somewhere in Arizona, I want to say. Somewhere that he is in love with David Foster Wallace, who is not a minimalist writer, which is what Hemingway and the other big writers of the 20th century were, meaning that omit needless words, which is the Strunk and Brown sort of Bible that most writers live by. Comic book writing is even more stripped down. It even compresses the events to tighter bits, to almost skits, you know? They're almost dramatic skits instead of, especially this issue, this storyline in this issue, but this title period is almost dramatic skits. That's almost practically what this is. Not quite the way John Wick is action skits. And it's an interesting thing it's a development of the medium. So today's card, I believe this is number 4. Well, 4 diamonds. There's a trading post. You're out at a trading post. There's about 300 people around. Trading post in the future, a future collapse society, Mad Max society, one where there is peace and prosperity, most likely has some sort of militia or guard, almost like the Old West towns. Don't bring your guns to town, or you have to leave them with the sheriff at the edge of town. Some towns had that, some towns didn't. You can't carry guns in town. This one is an encounter card, and it says, this is Conflicted Deck 2. You bump into a guy at a trading post who came to your shelter, your camp, your hideout, begging for food, and you turned him away. It doesn't say you gave him nothing. It also doesn't say that he was rude, but he is now in this trading post screaming and yelling about how he will sell information about your family, your reserves, your guards, everything about your bug out location to the highest bidder because you turned him away when he's hungry. So there's a few things you can do in that situation. They wrote this out. Look, they put some effort into this, so you kind of have to address the effort that they put into these sentences. And they're making it quite clear that this guy is going to a lot of effort to put your group at risk. The obvious, easy answer is you draw a pistol and you shoot him in front of everyone. That's maybe not the best idea. There's other ways you could handle it. You could get louder than him. You could do what's in sales called 8-miling, where you list your own flaws. There's a famous quote, and I'm not going to remember the guy who said it at all, but essentially is, if you've said this about me, you've neglected to mention all these other faults of mine. You must not have known about them. You know, if you've called me out because I did this wrong, well, wait till you find out I did this and this and this wrong too. Never meet your heroes, sort of thing. And so you could 8-mile this guy right in front of everyone. You could say, yeah, that's where our bug out location is. And we've got this many people and we're well armed and we're well stocked. And if you come up there acting like an idiot, we will turn you away. If you come up there with courtesy and respect and maybe something to trade, even firewood, you know, maybe we could negotiate. But if you're just going to come up and demand something because you're a human being and you're upset and that you need me to give you something from my hard labor to calm you down, you're basically holding me hostage with your bad mood, then no, I don't have to cooperate with that. And that's what that's kind of the answer. That's the answer you're looking for. But there's a lot of ways to go about getting it. You don't have to shoot him in the head. That would be the worst thing you could do. It wouldn't even be good to strike him with the end of the pistol, although it might be satisfying. It's not really what you want to do. I am out here doing this. Why? Because I've had a lot of struggles in my life, and I'm going through a new one right now. And a sort of epiphany came to me right before I started recording this. Don't complain about losing something you weren't using anyhow. So my right eye has never been specifically great. My left eye is my dominant eye. I barely even noticed that I was losing the vision in my right eye. So why am I beating myself up over it? The bigger question though, I was struck with this too. Catholics have the Trinity, right? The triangle. Now, there's a couple different trinities you could have in your own mind. You could have the left and right hemispheres in your heart, which is that kind of triangle. And you could also have left and right hemispheres in the corpus callosum that runs across the top of the brain, the nerve ganglia that connects the two halves of the hemispheres. I knew the moment this happened that it had happened. I saw a series of flashes in my eye and a series of floaters connected on a string, and I was like, that's a detached retina. And I knew it, and I said it in my mind, but I couldn't bring myself to look it up online. Dude, I cannot, it was impossible. I was not in control. It was not a conscious choice. It was not a choice that I could make. Until I had told 2 other people that it had happened, I couldn't take action on it. I can't explain that. Where is the gap between knowing and taking action? Why? I can take action in so many other things in my life, no problem. But why this one? Why was there? Where is that I couldn't? So they say that Odin gave his eye for wisdom. I didn't get, and this was a choice. This is a choice not to do something about this. Am I looking for wisdom here? Do I feel stupid? I certainly feel stupid now, and I don't feel a lot wiser. I think the only thing I can learn from this is ask for help. So, yeah. And where I have always gone to ask for help in the past is to novelists for a lot of different reasons, mostly for the patience to get me through. If I had set out with money as a goal, I'm certain I could have chased and found and conquered money. But my problem in life, also I didn't have any interest in engineering. My problem in life was dealing with other people, and it still is. People are, and it's funny because I listen to a couple different guys. When it comes to motivational stuff is really easy to get. And if it can pump you up for a half an hour, then do it. That's a half an hour of work you got done. That's better than none, right? So if listening to that Stallone speech from Rocky V, or if reading a novel gives you the courage to face your own problems, that's much better than drugs and alcohol. So that's where I've gone for solutions in my life. Homer, Cervantes, Tolkien, Cormac McCarthy, Robert E. Howard. These are the answers. These are where I found it. And because this is what I want. This is the legacy I want. Yeah, I want to be rich, but I want to do great work. And some would argue that wealth is a hindrance to doing great work. I never thought about it that way. I wanted to get rich doing the work. I didn't want to get rich being a day trader and then be acknowledged for work because I was rich, which is happening. But I was going to say, there are a couple motivational guys that I've been listening to on YouTube, and 2 of them are diametrically opposed. David Locker, I think his channel's Elmer L. Locker Jr., and I think that's his grandfather, and his name is David, and he's a bald guy who's been to prison. He's usually sitting in a tank top, tons of tattoos, huge. And Alex Hormozy, who is also jacked. Alex Hormozy went to college and opened a bunch of gyms, and he believes the only way is hard work, whereas David Locker is saying manifest your best life by focusing on it when you go to sleep. Obviously that sounds ridiculous, but what that does is it drives you to take, what's the name for it? Not conjunctive or correlative action, but basically take coordinated actions throughout the day that will do what Alex Hormozy is saying, just do the hard work, do the hard work. And that's the truth. This is the way. What David Locker is trying to do is for unimaginative people who don't have the workout mindset, he's trying to paint a different route for them to get in the gym or to get in the sales meetings or to get, to seek those sales leads, etc., etc. For me, it's about sitting down and writing and drawing, but the hard part is selling. And that's what I have to do here. That's why I'm out here every day talking to you guys, hanging out, just saying what's up and letting you know what I'm going through. Life ain't easy. And I'm the biggest obstacle. You know what I mean? Not because of what I wanted, but because of how I wanted to get it. And the journey matters. The journey matters. So I have 2 awesome novels for you guys. Legacy of a Mad Scientist and Legend of Ashley Fox. You can listen to them right here as audiobooks, or you can buy them and read them. I don't read anymore, not novels. I only listen to audiobooks. And this eye has been going for a long time before I got the tear in my retina. And part of I have to wear glasses. I have a pair here somewhere within reach. I saw someone drawing the other day with a big magnifiers headset on. Not the other day, probably like last year. And while this was going wrong and I was neglecting it, and I thought, well, maybe that's what I need to do to draw. And I still hadn't found the way to draw that I've found now. And if I had found this a year ago, I probably would have gotten this dealt with immediately. Life is strange. At every time, like, it's almost like the path you think you're on is literally like those video games where the path in front of you is disintegrating and you have to find another route, and you think you see the route, but it falls apart and things change and you have to, readjust. Life is like that. So yeah, Legacy of Mad Scientist, Legend of Ashley Fox. Oh, this is what I also wanted to talk about. Voice in fiction. That's another thing I was listening to on Right Conscious. That's the kid who's in love with David Foster Wallace, who committed suicide. Look at all these great writers who committed suicide. That's another thing you gotta fucking really deal with. Thomas Wolfe, one of my favorites. You Can Never Go Home Again. I think he drank himself to death. Alan Watts drank himself to death. Hemingway and Robert E. Howard both went for the gun. I don't know how Cervantes died. David Foster Wallace, I don't know what he did. Gun or poison. He seems like a poison guy. That's got to be a hard way to go. It's rough. It's rough. But when it comes to voice in fiction, it's not always easy. My current stuff, that's the novel that I'm writing right now, I have to really think about that because all my characters speak with my voice, and it's the motivation that's speaking. It depends on what they want as to how they say it and who they're saying it to. Context plays a huge part in voice. So a conversation will have, if you want to see great, look, I've never been a Faulkner fan. I really didn't like Sound and Fury, but To Have and Have Not is one of the best films ever made. The main character of every scene makes every choice. In the very beginning, when the fat guy comes down to Humphrey Bogart's boat, and Humphrey Bogart he gives him permission to come aboard, and the guy stands on the dock for a moment and thinks about it, looks up at the sky and says, how do you think the weather is? It's a beautiful day out. It's black and white, but it's still a beautiful day. And Humphrey Bogart's like, I think we'll be all right. He's like, all right then. And he steps on. That moment, that decision, that's the magic. That's the joke. That's the moment between the twist and the punchline in the joke. That's the gold that I create in my writing. But I do it with drama, not with comedy. Comedy for me has always been about making fun of people, and it's always felt like punching down, even when I was on the bottom. Even when I was making fun of people who could hurt me, it still felt like punching down. It felt like making fun of people. Because it wasn't coming from a place of love, it didn't feel like it was inclusive. And if you listen to Bill Burr talk about his nights hanging out with Patrice O'Neill where they just ripped on each other, I knew those kids in junior high. We were all those kids in junior high. Some guys made it into a living. Do you get what I'm saying? Some guys turned skateboarding into a full-time profession. Some people went into the trades. Some people went to college. Everybody's doing something. Are you happy with what you're doing? I tell you what, I am. This past week has been challenging for me. Really fucking challenging. Because I've had to acknowledge that, and it's been more than the past week, it's been the past few months. Several months. And I haven't had the money. And now, look, last night, and now I have health insurance. That's $77 a month. And I think that's new. Because the last time I looked up health insurance, it was $800 a month. So I think they have a new plan where health insurance is now attached to how much you make, and I lied about how much I make to get health insurance. I'm not above that. I think I paid for it. I can't afford it if I double. If I told them I'm making about half of what I'm making, and it's a quarter of what it would be, and that's about what I can afford. So you know what? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose this eye completely, and that's a lie I'm willing to tell. I've gone a year. I can sleep with a clear conscience for that. You know, the way this is set up, it's, you know, it shouldn't have happened at all. But my Conan mindset is, what are you going to do? They didn't have anything to fix their eyes when Conan was growing up. Conan doesn't exist, you fucking asshole. He's a fictional character. He went through all kinds of drama that had no physical effect. He would have been broken bones into bits. He never would have survived half of the falls that he took in all the stories and all the, you know, being knocked out all those times. If you look at what happens when you get knocked out over and over and over again, it damages your personality. It makes you angry and mean. That's significant. I read a book, listened to an audiobook by Dr. Daniel Amen, who's a brain scan specialist out here in LA. I think it was on Audible. I don't remember the name of the book, but he's done 30,000 brain scans. And he can tell just by you telling him the events. Like if I say, oh, I'm a skateboarder, I was boxing, blah, 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 blah. He's going to be like, dude, you're fucked. But I didn't do boxing sparring like Denzel Washington, so I wasn't taking a bunch of shots to the head. And my skateboarding career has been mostly recent, and I haven't taken any shots to the head with that. So hopefully I can still think, but I'm making fucking retarded decisions because I don't talk to anybody. You guys are the only people I talk to. Talk to them out.